And then look to your left with your eyes. Yeah. Hold that for a sec.
Photographer Esther Godoy is in her element. She's crouching down as she photographs a person sitting on the floor of her house.
And then turn your whole neck over to look at me. Yeah, there it is. Hold that. Oh, wait a sec there.
Esther puts the camera even closer to them. Looking intently at the LCD screen, her lips curve into a smile.
Yeah, this is the shot here.
Esther Godoy is the photographer behind a project called Butch is Not a Dirty Word. Esther's own relationship with the word butch has evolved over time.
I think I came out around 21 and I had always had this masculinity about me, but I was always like far too butch phobic and far too ashamed to even think about leaning into it. I was always afraid people would mistake me for a boy. That's what they used to do when I was young.
Esther grew up in a suburb of Melbourne, Australia, and found community through skateboarding. When she was 23, she came to Portland, Oregon, as part of a women's skateboarding tour.
And as soon as I landed in Portland and I got into this van with this bunch of really riff-raff skater girls, I saw this butch lesbian who was just a little bit older than me, 2 or 3 years, and she was really tall and she was super well dressed, and I had never seen anything like it in my life. I had no idea I could be like that. And she was so confident and she was so in herself, and she really didn't have any visible shame that I could see. And I remember just being who is this person? I don't know if I want to make out with them. I don't know if I want to be them. I'm really confused.
That confusion was the beginning of a new relationship with the word butch. Esther's masculine way of presenting herself became a source of pride and something she wanted to share with more and more people.
So my dream for the platform for Butch is Not a Dirty Word has always been that it would function kind of like an older sibling or a mentor, the kind that I never had.
From the Gert Boyle studio, I'm Jen Chavez, and this is The Evergreen, a podcast from OPB about the place you call home. OPB video producer Emily Hamilton went along with Esther Godoy on a recent photo shoot. Emily, first of all, what exactly is this project that Esther has created?
So Esther is a photographer, and she photographs queer, gender-expansive, masculine of center women and non-binary and trans people, all who identify with the term butch. And Butch is Not a Dirty Word is the platform where she shares her work. So it's a physical magazine that features her photographs and interviews. It's a digital magazine. It's a social media presence. Esther also produces events, and all of these things kind of center on uplifting and celebrating butch identity.
Amazing. And you tagged along with Esther on a recent photo shoot. So what was the first step?
Yeah, so we met up at a coffee shop called Old Friends, and Esther was just prepping for the day, prepping for the shoot, going over her plans. And when we were there, we also met up with Murphy, who's Esther's friend. Murph would be photographed later in the day, but at that first shoot, they kind of just helped carry gear. They chatted with the other two photo subjects, Silver Sky and Marissa Morse, and kind of just overall helped set the vibe.
I like to have a camera assistant kind of come along, and they're probably a camera assistant in a less traditional way where they're kind of like a little rodeo clown or my vibe person where they kind of just interact with the subject while we're shooting, and they just help make the environment more comfortable, more playful, and it helps us just get more natural kind of photos of the person.
And what makes Murph a good fit for that kind of role?
Yeah, so I think Murph talked a lot about how most of their professional experience has really been helping queer and trans people kind of come into their identities. And they're part of the community. So it was just all felt very nice and great energy to have them there as part of the group.
A huge part of what I have done in terms of advocating and coming alongside the queer and trans community professionally is just holding space and, validating, listening to folks as they're navigating coming into queerness or transness or exploring or asking questions.
In addition to being Esther's camera assistant, Murph was also in some of the photos, right?
Yeah, Murph was one of the subjects in the second shoot. So they photographed like all three of them together, Marissa, Silver, and Murph. And I think Murph had talked about, it's not something they would do very often, like be a model in a photo shoot. But it was just super clear that they had a lot of respect for Esther's work, and they trusted Esther and wanted to be part of the project.
Yeah, I just hope that by folks seeing this project of thinking about how are you expressing your own gender, because whether you're aware of it or not, we're all expressing our gender. And butch is not a dirty word brings a specific gender expression to life in a really dynamic way.
Okay, so once you set out with Esther and Murph from the coffee shop, where did you go for the actual photo shoot?
Yeah, so the first place we went was Silver's house, and we met up with Silver and Marissa there. Silver and Marissa are good friends, and Marissa had been photographed by Esther before, but it was Silver's first time being photographed. And Silver's like a performer, and she's kind of famous on social media and has like a very large following and creates like very queer music. So Esther kind of filled Murph in on all of that and what was going to happen at the shoot on the way there.
So Silver is like this young mask person. I'm obsessed with them. I love their vibe. They grew up in Portland, and so it'll be Silver. Silver's best friend, Marissa, who I actually photographed like 2 weeks ago for Butch is Not a Dirty Word. Okay. They just went up on the feed.
Right on.
And their energy together is just really fun and playful.
Silver and Marissa talked about how their perspectives on the word butch as it relates to their own identities had changed because of Esther's work.
Before this project, butch was kind of like, I wouldn't say derogatory, but it wasn't like the most, it wasn't a label I felt super comfortable being like, that's me, until seeing it in different like variety, I guess. Then I was like, oh, butch is a lot of different things. Esther's project feels like it really like highlights different forms of butchness in a way where it's like, not every butch is the same.
I just think it's awesome that they make everybody look extremely hot, like in every way. Like it's absurd. It's insane to like just you don't really see the beauty until you see it, and they're capturing it so well in like so many different ways. So you're just like, wow, I look like that? And that ain't me. What you do to that? That ain't me. And then you're like, damn, that's me.
It's you.
Esther is really trying to capture the beauty of butchness with her photos, and she's turning traditional concepts of beauty, even queer beauty, on their head.
I had experiences early in my 20s where like I just assumed that like love and attraction and sex were like never going to be a thing for me because I just assumed I was ugly or unattractive. And then I found queer community that appreciated masculine of center people, and so I started to understand through the lens of other people how I was attractive.
These days, she moves confidently through a photo shoot, but Esther didn't always think of herself as a photographer. When she first came up with the idea for Butch is Not a Dirty Word, she was hiring other people to take the photos.
I didn't want the portraits to just be portraits. I wanted to capture people in their environments. I wanted to be environmental. So it was almost like I was looking for this mixture between portrait photography and kind of photojournalism. And so at some point I was like, I'm just going to pick up a camera and start trying to capture it myself.
She says it took her 3 to 5 years of learning on the job before she started to feel satisfied with her own photos.
And I can't tell you like how much of an incredible experience it is as a creative to finally be like, oh my God, that's the thing I pictured. It's happening now.
Coming up after a break, we'll hear how Butch is Not a Dirty Word has evolved over the past 13 years. Thanks for listening to The Evergreen, our podcast from OPB about the place you call home. If you dig what you hear, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll brighten your Monday morning a little bit with something new and exciting to listen to each week. You can also follow OPB on Instagram at OPB Photo, or follow me directly at Jen Chavez OPB. That's Jen with 2 N's, and I'll keep you posted on what Team Evergreen is up to. And remember, this episode about butch is not a dirty word, and all the great OPB reporting and storytelling you hear on this show is made possible by the support of many thousands of OPB members. Support our journalism by becoming an OPB sustaining member today at opb.org/pod. And one last thing real quick before we get back into it, I am excited to tell you we're going to be doing a live taping of the Evergreen soon. It's coming up on Thursday, March 6th at the Tomorrow Theater in Southeast Portland. Come join us in the audience and see how our podcast gets made. Check out more details at opb.org/theevergreen. And now, back to the show. Emily, we heard a little bit at the beginning of this episode about the role that Portland has played in Esther Godoy's perspective on the word butch, but I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, so Esther's a skateboarder, so she came to Portland for the first time for like a skate competition. And she talked about how when she came here, she like met a bunch of skaters, and there was specifically this like one really cool butch person who kind of took her under her wing, and she had like never seen anything like that before, this visible example of butchness. So I think Esther was kind of like shocked in a positive way, I guess, about how butch people were treated in Portland and kind of like how they are able to move through the world here, because that was not her experience prior to that.
Yeah, my identity as a butch was gifted to me from somebody else. Somebody else I thought was really hot and had great energy called me butch for the first time anybody had ever called me butch. And I was like, am I? Is that what I am? And I was kind of like, if this person sees me as that and they see it as a good thing, it feels so good and it feels so right to me, then yeah, maybe I am. And maybe that's what I want to start calling myself.
Well, I love that she had this eye-opening experience in Portland. And what happened when she took that new butch identity back to Melbourne with her?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting for me to hear her talk about that too, having that really positive experience here in Portland and feeling that affirmation in her identity, and then taking it back to Melbourne with her and like really feeling invisible.
I think it's one thing to be like rejected by mainstream society because you can easily make sense of that. You're like, well, I'm a bit different. But when you find your people, when you find queer community and you find lesbian community and they reject you too, it's like a whole other level of like what's wrong with me?
So, of course, she came back to Portland.
You know, one of the most amazing things about Portland is how queer it is and how just like the deep history that's kind of come like as a part of being on the West Coast and San Francisco and Los Angeles. But also just the kind of lovable weirdo vibe means that anything goes in Portland. So gender nonconformity as far as and as long as I've been here, which certainly isn't the whole history, but it's been a part and parcel of the fabric of the city.
Esther officially moved to Portland in 2016, about 7 years after her first visit to the city.
Oh, without the city of Portland, I would be like miserable. I would be very mentally unwell.
And while life has been good in Portland, she says sometimes her butchness is still confusing to people, even here. She's on the shorter side, and she's not likely to be mistaken for a man.
So there's a childlike way that people read me, and there is an infantilization that comes with that. And I know that's the experience for a lot of butch and masculine people who are smaller or shorter or have a smaller frame. And it's a completely different experience of masculinity than a butch lesbian in a different kind of body.
Clearly, there's not just one way to be butch. Emily, how does Esther's project embrace the spectrum of what that word means to people who identify with it?
Yeah, Esther talked about the word butch in like this really cool way. It can be a noun, it can be an adjective, it's like a gender identity, and it's all like wrapped up into one word, and it's subjective, and it's always like up to the people who use it.
Nobody can really say what is or what isn't butch. It's all about like the individual person. Do you identify with this terminology? How do you identify it? How do you embody it? It leaves it up to the individual whilst also still allowing us all to be like a joint entity.
And butch is not a dirty word, embraces everybody under that umbrella. So it's like women who are masculine of center, trans people, non-binary people, all gender expansive people, and people all over the spectrum. There's a place for them like within this word. And I think that breadth of expression and like showing that people are three-dimensional and not a two-dimensional stereotype is like a key part of the project.
I would say that one of the number one complaints that I hear from other butch people is people project this kind of masculinity onto them that's actually not all that accurate for them. So there's a playfulness and there's a vulnerability in the subjects that is there inherently. And it's almost like they've just been kind of waiting for someone to allow them or give them permission to lead with that rather than lead with their toughness.
Emily, I know you've been following Esther's work for a few years now. How does her project speak to you personally?
So I identify as somewhere like on the butch spectrum somewhere. And I actually did discover Esther's work like a long time ago. And it was really important to me as kind of, I was like discovering my identity. And it's kind of continued to be really significant and important to me, like as I've continued to grow into the person I am now. So getting to work on this project and getting to like talk with Esther and experience her work and kind of hear about what she's trying to do, it's just been really cool and like really impactful for me.
Do you have any specific memories of images or like moments of discovery when you were first finding this project that really resonated with you and made you want to follow more of Esther's work?
I don't know if there's a specific photo that's coming to mind, but I think it really was like the way she's able to capture like the expansive way that people are under this identity that made me feel like, oh, there's not just two categories that I'm kind of just failing at. There's like a whole other world where people are able to just be exactly who they are and not have to be anything else. So that was very important to me when I was like a young college age probably person discovering that.
Well, that's amazing. And thank you so much for your work on this and for being with us on the Evergreen today to talk about it.
Thank you for having me.
Emily Hamilton is a video producer and reporter on OPB's visuals team. You can see her video about Esther Godoy and Butch is Not a Dirty Word at opb.org. Thank you so much for listening to The Evergreen, a podcast from OPB. Julie Sabatier produced this episode, and our technical director is Stephen Cray. Nalene Silva engineered the episode. The OPB podcast team also includes Mia Estrada and Sage Van Wing. Emily Hamilton, Jesse Sears, and Zach Carver-Gustin did the interviews you heard. The music in this episode is from Audio Network. And if you have a question for us, please reach out. You can reach us by email at theevergreen@opb.org. I'm Jen Chavez. Catch you later.
So she's a butch queen.
No. I think that's something else in the gay world.
Well, that's a world I don't know nothing about, child.
I just wish I knew where I went wrong.
What do you mean where you went wrong? Denise ain't never been arrested. She in college. She keep a job and she respects her elders. Honey, if she want to lay around with some women, baby, that is her business.